Hola, 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 buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos días, cualquier hora es donde usted está. Hola. Hey everybody, I'm Tasha. Tasha teaches Spanish. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hello. Thank you so much for watching another episode, otro episodio de Hablamos Español. If this is your first time viewing, hola, gracias y bienvenido. I appreciate you for tuning in. And so just about every Friday, we post an interview with someone who is making an impact in a positive way, increasing the diversification in foreign language acquisition. And so tonight we have with us Jamila Ball, I have that pronunciation right, of Jamii Linguistics. Hola, Jamila.
Yep. Hello, how are you?
Doing well. Happy to have you. I really appreciate it. And so, guys, those of you who are viewing, I started this a series like 2 months ago when it was with people I knew. But the more guests we have, that's people I don't have an idea about. So just as you all are learning about Jamila and Jamii Linguistics, I'll be learning as well. So let's learn together.
Jamii Linguists.
Jamii Linguists, perdóname. Thank you. Perdóname. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with an introduction. I'm going to ask Jamila some questions about herself, and there'll be an Español. So this is an opportunity for you, the viewer, to test your knowledge. What did you know? What did you not know? Oftentimes people realize or know more than they realize. So you'll follow us in our conversation. It'll be about 5 minutes. Then at the end, stay till the end. We'll go over her introduction again in English, and you can see what you got right. Okay, here we go. Okay, entonces, sabemos tu nombre ya. We already know your name. ¿Cuáles son algunos de sus pasatiempos?
Mis pasatiempos. Actualmente es difícil por lo de COVID, obviamente, pero para mí me encanta bailar. Me encanta ir a bailar salsa, soy una salsera. También soca, me encanta soca. Entonces yo diría bailando, me encanta bailar. Necesito hacer más ejercicios, pero...
Todo el mundo necesita más de eso. Okay,
claro.
Muy bien. Entonces, bailar generalmente, salsa, soca, etc.
Sí.
Ok, muy bien. Pregunta 2, ¿de dónde eres?
Soy afroestadounidense.
Ok, muy bien. ¿Y cuál estado?
De Connecticut, cerca de New York.
Ok, sí. Muy bien. Creo que nunca he hablado con alguien de Connecticut. Es mi primera vez, creo.
¿Ah, de veras?
Okay. Creo que sí.
La primera vez, ok.
Yo estoy en Arkansas. Ok, ¿qué más?
Si conozco a alguien. No creo que sí.
Entonces es el primero para los dos de nosotras.
Sí, para las dos, sí.
Ok. Siguiente. Por favor, hable un poco de tu familia.
De mi familia. Pues tengo una familia muy diversa. Tengo familia afrocolombiana, tengo familia de Trinidad y tengo mi familia más cercana como mi mamá y mi papá de los Estados Unidos. Y todos, ¿dónde viven todos? Estamos como en la costa este de los Estados Unidos. Entre Florida, New York, Connecticut, Virginia, todos como... Estamos en la costa este, pero también tengo familia en Colombia de mi hija, lado del papá de mi hija.
Ok, muy bien. Siguiente, ¿qué son, qué es tu trabajo o son tus trabajos?
Mis trabajos, pues, trabajando para la comunidad siempre. Yo soy la fundadora y directora ejecutiva de Jamii Linguists y yo ayudo con aprendizaje de idiomas, de español, francés, portugués, desarrollar planes de cómo individuos pueden alcanzar sus metas, hablando del aprendizaje de idiomas. También soy traductora y intérprete y Yo ayudo con programas para entrenar a otros intérpretes nuevos. ¿Y qué más? Servicios lingüísticos, interpretación, traducción, cosas así.
Ok,
Pero
entonces,
todo dirigido hacia la comunidad afrodescendiente.
muy bien, muy bien. Entonces, en una palabra, podemos decir idiomas, casi cada parte de tu vida involucrar. I'm trying to say involucra. I don't think that's right. But
Tiene que ver o involucrar, ¿sí?
okay, sí, eso. Idiomas. Gracias, gracias.
Idiomas.
Okay,
Todo tiene
siguiente.
que ver con idiomas.
¿Qué usted quiere ser en el futuro si sea diferente de lo que haces ahora?
No escuché todo.
Oh, perdón. ¿Qué usted quiere ser en el futuro o hacer en el futuro si sea diferente de lo que haces ahora?
Quiero ampliar nuestros programas porque tenemos un programa que se llama Language and Diaspora y me encantaría tener como una red para todos los idiomas, quiero decir, una red para inglés, español, francés. Necesito hacer más con enseñanza de inglés, es algo que yo podría decir, pero ampliar mis servicios con más idiomas.
Ok, muy bien. Y al final, tu canción latina favorita o cantante latino favorito.
No tengo como cantante, hay varios. Es difícil decir, elegir, pero la canción, yo diría La Rebelión de Joy Arroyo.
La Verión, ¿la qué?
La Rebelión.
Ok. ¿Por quién? ¿El cantante?
Joy Arroyo.
Joey Arroyo. Ok, gracias.
Habla de la historia afrodescendiente en Colombia, de esclavitud, pero cuando uno tiene que bailar a esa canción, es lo mejor, pero es una canción llena de historia,
Qué bonito. Y nunca he escuchado de él. Joey Arroyo. ¿Arroyo o Arroya?
Arroyo.
Okay, gracias. All right, viewers, so that is it. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you comprehended something you heard. And once again, stay around to the end so we can clarify to make sure you got it. All right. So Jamila, I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right, ma'am. And not Jamila. Jamila. Okay, Jamila. So
right,
let's start at the beginning. Why did you decide to even learn Spanish? Or I don't know the first language you learned. I guess it's an assumption. So whatever the first foreign language was, or a language you didn't grow up speaking, why did you decide to learn that language?
Yeah, Spanish actually was my first language. I'm currently on a French and Portuguese journey also, but Spanish was my first language that I learned. I learned as an adult. I did a study abroad, but my desire to learn the language, I think, had a lot to do with my early experiences in childhood, because my father would speak to me and say things to me in Spanish, even though he didn't speak Spanish. He would say like, "Cómo está usted?" He would say, because he was, in Brooklyn, there was a lot of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans. And so he was fascinated with languages. He would give me like books of Swahili, Moja means one, and things like that, and Mambo, and like, so his fascination with the African diaspora brought him to become more interested in language. Which, when I think about it now, that's literally what I revolved my business around now. So I think his influence is present in me. But it was really that, and I wanted to. I know, right? But it was really that, like, kind of inspiration to travel, to meet people, to connect. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go on a study abroad. I was broke as I don't know what when I went, but I made it through, and I learned in 6 months.
So where study abroad, where? And let me say they asked this as well, because typically people think about study abroad as only being available through college. So you mentioned you were an adult. So is this something an outside of college program? That's question one. And two, where did you go?
It was a college program, but I felt grown. I was paying my own bills. It was a college program I did go to, but it was towards the end. It was towards the end of college. And I ended up getting a certificate in simultaneous interpretation also from the same college, from Howard. Shout out Howard. For any Bison family out there, we're always very proud people. But we went to Argentina. So I went to Argentina. And the interesting thing about it is you mentioned that like a lot of people talk about just, a lot of people think of study abroad as something that you can only do in college. And there are work abroad opportunities. There's so many different things. But I also have come to learn in the years since then that there's so many ways to learn a language that doesn't necessarily require having to, pack up and move and go years.
Yeah.
And just because you go on a study abroad doesn't mean you'll come back fluent. There were people who
Amen. Amen. That's it.
They spent the entire time talking to other students in English. So when they came back, they really didn't speak much Spanish because they spent 6 months in their little cave with the friends that they were comfortable with and didn't really talk to other people if it was hard, right? So they spoke English in a foreign country for 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a really good point, because when I lived in Spain for a season, I ended up traveling to France and went to Paris. So I met some people there. I went by myself, and I thank God for the people I met, because I was like, what am I doing in Paris for 3 days alone? But I met some students who were just studying abroad, and I just knew we would get around and they would know French, and no. And one of them said it with no shame, like, "Oh yeah, I don't speak French." Baby, what you doing here?
It is funny you said that, because le juillet dernier, je suis allée à Paris. Last July, I went to Paris, and I guided myself through like a language program for over the course of a month by myself. I went and like met up with some partners and stuff there. But if I wanted to only speak in English, I could have spoken English the entire time and not spoke a lick of French. I was about to say Franish.
New word. It's Spanglish, but French and Spanish mixed together.
But no, I could have. It was purposeful. I think that's my point. When you want to learn a language, no matter where you go or no matter what you do, it has to be purposeful. It's not something that you're just gonna like, oh, I woke up and now I speak this new language.
Yes, ma'am. That's really good. I'm glad you're saying that, especially for the viewers. That it's not you don't have to go abroad, but either way, if you stay here or you go away, you gotta be intentional. I like that. Let me ask you this, and I'm not trying to get in your business. I'm just curious, because I've thought about this for myself. So you mentioned you went just last July, but you mentioned that you do have a child. How does that work? Did you take them with you? Because I've even thought to myself, if I ever go back abroad for an extended amount of time, am I going to bring my son? How's that going to go? So if anybody else is watching and they may I want to go abroad, but I have 2 babies, how did that work for you? And maybe how does it work for other people?
Well, I'll tell you what, everything has to do with Jamii, because in Swahili, Jamii means community. And without it, I can't do nothing, honey. So she was with my mama. You know what I mean? So I went the summers, a lot of times during the summer, she'll spend some time with her dad, or she'll spend some time with my mom. And I know that during the summers, I have a little bit more wiggle room to kind of without having like day-to-day mommy responsibilities. So I purposely picked to go at a time where I knew that she would be someplace and it wouldn't disrupt her routine, because whether I went or not, she would have been with my mother. So
okay, good. All right. So you mentioned already that you learned in the 6 months of studying abroad in Argentina. And so obviously you went, and so let me make sure I'm getting this right. So study abroad programs, you're going and you're learning in their university and they're only teaching the subjects in Spanish.
Correct.
So outside of that, how did you find Spanish speakers to continue your development?
I did everything that I would naturally have wanted. And it's the same thing I encourage my coaching students and stuff to do now. When I was there, I did things that were fun outside of class. I did things that I would want to do in English. I was there. And I did the same thing in France. I was going to salsa parties and things in France. And they're like, you going to salsa? I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to them in French about this salsa song. You know what I mean? Because this is what I like to do. But we would go out to dance. We did, and then I also found like a group of folks who were willing and committed to the language learning process. So the people that I spent time, I purposely picked a couple people in the program to spend most of my time with, because they were like, okay, we're only going to talk to each other in Spanish. We'll talk to each other in English sometime, but we're going to try to focus on speaking to each other in Spanish. And I'm not trying to pretend that like I didn't speak a lick of English for 6 months. That's obviously not the case. You know, there's those times where your brain just starts hurting and you're just like, okay, I gotta switch. You know? But I just did fun things. Like I remember I went and got wax. The first time I ever got like my legs waxed and all this other stuff, it cost $11, honey. They waxed everything for $11. And so like, you know, you're getting your nails done, you're doing things. They couldn't do my hair in Argentina and I had locks. So we wasn't messing with hair. There were no beauty salons, there was no beauty supply. There was no salad, you know. So I wasn't getting my hair done. But like, you know, you go and just do stuff. I was living, like we went out to eat, we did, you know, restaurants, and whenever someone, and I still do the same thing, I'm like, prefiero hablar en español, you know. So you go to the restaurant, they hear you struggling a little bit, so they switch. And I just kept going.
Right. Let me struggle so I can get through this. I gotta learn.
I can't control what language you speak. Like that's your mouth, your rules. You pick which language you want to speak. But if I'm talking, then I made a purposeful decision that when I was out and about, that I would focus on using Spanish.
This is wonderful. Let me ask you this, going back to the haircut, this is a great point. Most of our guests, or all of our guests so far, have been African-American. And so if anybody's watching and interested in study abroad, that is a thing to consider. I don't think people always realize that.
With you.
I don't think they always think. And it's wherever you're going, not just Latin America, it's China, Germany, well, anywhere, because you never know. Where I end up living, there obviously was nobody there to do my hair, but they did have like an hour away at least African shops, and they would have some of the similar hair, and that helped me. I still do my own hair. I wasn't gonna let them touch my hair, but yeah, I packed some wigs. And let me ask you this: I had an interesting experience in reference to my hair. I lived in a small town, and so just like a small town anywhere, closed minds or just what's that? And I ended up wearing my fro for like a week or two. And like students who love me, and I know they love me, they just still told me, we don't like your hair. Because little children are honest.
Yeah, that's true.
This is like this kindergarten, first grade, kindergarten, first grade.
Yeah.
What's wrong with your hair?
Right.
And so, and then like in the town, I had like a town mom, and she was a blessing, and she accepted me however I was. I was out with her one day and her family. So this guy that she knew came talking to her. Like I couldn't speak Spanish, but I guess he didn't know. And he was like, hey, yeah, who was this with you? Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, her hair is natural. It comes out like that. And the mom was like, yeah, what about it? She was quite like, leave her alone. But just interesting commentary. So for you, going through whatever you went through with your hair in Argentina, how was it received by natives, or what's your hair experience abroad?
Child, that's a word right there. What's your hair experience abroad? That is like
that should be a series. That should be
that is a word. Well, it's interesting because right now I have on twist extensions, right? But at the time when I was in Argentina, I had locks. They were down to my, were they down to my waist yet? I don't think yet. But I had longer locks, so maybe shoulder length at the time that I was in Argentina. And it was new to them. Like they didn't really see, and they would cut and a lot of times they'll call them trenzas, braids. Like, no trenzas, no son trenzas. And they're like, and then other folks who are more or where they'd be like, "Oh, me encanta tu pelo Rastafari." Like, I like your Rastafarian hair.
Rastafari look, yeah.
You know what I mean? Me encanta tu pelo Rastafari. But I literally had like a woman drag her kid up the street to bang. I was on the bus, on the city bus, and they call them colectivos. And she's like, to bang on la ventana, to bang on the window. And she's like, "Soste Africa o Jamaica?"
Went out of her way to ask.
Yes, I'm like, you dragged your child up the street running after a city bus just to bang on the door and ask this random Black girl where she's from, right? So it was one of those things where because I had locks and I already knew how to do my own hair and I brought my supplies with me, I didn't have like a lot of issues with like, there were no bad hair days. There were no like, oh, I can't find a salon, because I wasn't looking for one. But if I would have, and I honestly, whenever I travel, whenever I go abroad, I often, if I didn't have locks, if my hair was loose and natural, I would put in braids. So I would travel with extensions. So when I went to France, granted, France got plenty of Black folks. So I had some places where I could have gone. But like you said, I could have gone to like the African communities, but I wouldn't have necessarily have gone to get my hair done.
Right.
Because even in our, like, there's still some internalized stuff with how we do with our natural hair.
Correct.
We like ripping your hair out,
like taking your edges. You're not gonna have no edges,
right? You know what I mean? Like, you know,
that's why I didn't go. Yeah,
they're just not gentle with it, because it's kind of this feeling like your hair is tough when it's, you know, it's like strong Black woman syndrome. Just like people treat our hair like it can go through everything. And I'm like, I'm a little gentle. So I always wear extensions or something that doesn't require a lot of maintenance and protective style when I travel.
Overall, though, you already mentioned the people would comment on them. Overall, the reception was pretty good though on your hair. You never got like, you know, negative comments.
Not to my face. Not to my face. I didn't get a lot of negative comments. But I could tell. I mean, it was clear to me what the standard of beauty was, and that I didn't fit it. You know what I mean? So you can tell in the reaction in different things. But it didn't really. That wasn't really like the thing for me. I don't think I paid it much attention because I was able to do my hair. I think if I needed to do my hair while I was there, it probably would have been a different experience.
And let me ask you this, because in your introduction, you mentioned having Afro-Colombianos in your family. And even where I was, now I don't expect it in Spain, but most of Latin America, from my comprehension, has a decent Afro-Latino population. So where you were, there just was no melanated folks, or?
What you talking about in Argentina?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, it was there was a purposeful genocide. There was a purposeful, like, there are Black folks in Argentina. In Buenos Aires, I went 6 months, and I can count on both of my hands and have fingers left over and tell you how many Black people I saw while I was there, just walking in the street. But it's like it wasn't like it's on purpose that there's not a lot of like, but I learned after I left the country that there was a Black community in Argentina. Is actually one of the reasons why I'm so committed to the language and diaspora program, because when we learn about cultures and we learn about language, Black people are everywhere.
Correct.
We are in every country of the world, right? And even native populations of Black people who are generations and generations in that country, not just I moved there. You know what I mean? Like, we all know where our roots come from. But as far as the diaspora is real everywhere, but we don't often get a chance to learn that. So I left Argentina feeling like this is a very European country, and there isn't a Black community here. I left there without really critical knowledge about spaces and places where Black people were in Argentina. And it wasn't until I left that I learned it. And had I have had an opportunity to like research and or even a space to just find information about it, I would have looked for the community while I was there.
Correct.
That's the thing about traveling as a person of African descent. If you're interested in connecting with other Black people, in some places, you're going to trip over Black people every place you go. You go to Jamaica, you're not going to have a hard time finding Black people unless you're in the resorts, because the tourists are more than likely not going to look like you. But there's some countries where, yes, there's Black folks. You just have to go there looking for them. You know, and if you don't look for them, you're not necessarily going to be in community with them by accident.
You have to seek your folks out.
You have to seek them out.
Yeah. Okay. This is good stuff. And that was off the path of the conversation. But like I said, I expected that to happen. It's particularly with you.
I bounce all over the place. I sorry. I try to stay on topic.
No, ma'am. This is the beauty of conversation, and you're bringing, your own flair to the table, and through additional comments or ad-libbing, we learn more. So you're fine.
Cool.
All right. Now, this question is pretty obvious. I'm not even going to ask you that because you made a job out of it. What was most difficult for you to learn when you first started? And let me ask this as well to clarify. You said you went to Argentina in the study abroad program and learned in 6 months. Had you not had any classes before going?
So before going, I had classes in high school. So it's the normal, like, high school Spanish and those kinds of things. And like most people who learn language in U.S. schools, I could recognize a lot of things when I read it, right? But my reading hadn't translated to being able to hear what people were saying to me, right? And it was funny because I had when I got there, I realized that I had a really good ear for the language once I had an opportunity to really be able to, like, be around it. So I was able to quickly transition to hearing the language. But I think for me, what was hard, trying to think what was the hardest thing. In hindsight, I would say the hardest thing was not focusing on grammar. So for me, it wasn't really like a reading or writing or listening or that kind of thing, like the 4 domains, kind of thing. It was more of a I didn't know how to learn a language when I went to Argentina. I just trusted that, like, okay, if I go to this class, then I'll be able to learn. And I was just put into an environment where if I just spoke the language, eventually something was going to happen. But I don't think I had like a purposeful approach to it. So I had a lot of negative self-talk. Like if I made a mistake or if I said something wrong, my confidence, like my really hesitating and being afraid to say something because I was afraid I was going to sound stupid or say it wrong. And also being one of the few Black folks there, I didn't want to be like the dumb Black girl who can't get you know what I mean? So I wanted to be excellent. Meanwhile, in hindsight, when I really reflect on it, me and another sister who was in the group with me, she was from Virginia, and she was doing the damn thing. She was great and learning the language also. And she and I vibed, and we ended up rooming together. It was really helpful to see that there was another sister in the program to be able to connect with. I
won't say always, because not all kinfolk is kinfolk, but usually it helps when you can find
it helped. But she was really good. So sometimes I would be like, she's so much better. Like I would compare myself. Her accent sounds good and her grammar, and she understands the rules. And I think that's really, if I really think about it, that was my biggest issue. And I think a lot of people have that issue where you just get in your head, you're comparing yourself and telling yourself what you should sound like and what you should be able to do. And it stops you from just doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. And for me, I'm late on the grammar rules because once I comprehended the basics, which took a long time, then I sound dumb a lot probably. And just whoever I'm talking to, I say, correct me, but I'm gonna keep going. So I was late on the grammar. I just I'm winging it,
I've done news. I've done press, like not press conferences, but I've done, actually I think I did have one, but I've done news interviews, international for other international news outlets and things like that. I've led programs in Spanish. I've had to do a lot of like work using the language, right? Yeah. And I can't tell you the number of times that I said something wrong. I still, I'm very confident in my ability. I know that
Yeah.
I'm fluent. I'm a cusper between C1 and C2, right? So like I'm not C1, but I'm not like firmly C2.
Mhm.
So I'm in that cusp between C1 and
And if
C2.
anybody's listening, they don't comprehend what you just talked about. What is C1, C2? Break that down.
So the Common European Framework for Reference for Languages kind of breaks down language learning in these A1, B1, C1 categories. It's
Mhm.
essentially beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and it breaks down kind of like upper, lower. So that's why you have 1 and 2. So a C1 is advanced, and C2 is considered mastery, right?
Mm.
The thing about C2, and I think in general, I think the challenge of that is that I don't know that I would be C2 in English.
Oh, honest.
You know what I
Honest.
mean?
Yeah.
Like if I were to sit
Yeah.
down and someone were to, and I have advanced higher education, but if someone were to sit down and ask me to explain obscure grammar rules in
Yeah.
English, I don't know that I could, explain all of those, right? And honestly, a lot of my understanding of English grammar came because I learned another language. I didn't know why we say "if I were you" instead of
Mm.
"if I was you." I didn't know
Mm.
why. I just knew it sounded funny. I just knew it sounds right to say "if I were you." But
Yeah.
because I learned about subjuntivo, in Spanish, I learned about the subjunctive. Then I started to understand about conditional and tenses. I didn't think
Yeah.
about verb tenses in English, but they exist. They're a thing. So I don't know that I would be C2 in English.
Very, very honest. And in case anybody's wondering why I was so reactive to that, because that's the thing about learning another language. Most of us aren't even perfect in our own tongue. And we still speaking, no one can come and tell you, oh, you're not fluent
C2
in
is
English.
African American vernacular English, though. I got that on lock.
Yes, ma'am. So
That's
that's a
my
good
first
point.
language. I'm
I
not
told
even
somebody.
but I'm serious. That is my native, if I really think about it. Um,
hmm
so I'd be C2 in AAVE.
I thought about that, telling people I need to start saying I'm trilingual. I know standard English, U.S. English. I know
Mhm,
Ebonics. I say Ebonics
mhm,
and Spanish. So yeah, good point.
mhm,
Good point.
mhm,
But back to what I was saying. And if somebody, we speak American or U.S. English, and somebody tells you you're not fluent in English, you'd be like, no, I am. But I talk how I talk, whether I'm breaking
exactly,
rules or not. So that's how I
exactly.
am with, on that little scale. I could be a B2. I don't even know. I hadn't done the little test that examines it, but you can't tell me I'm not fluent. You can't tell me I can't talk. I can't be comprehended. I can't comprehend and
Mhm.
get through.
Can
So
you
yeah.
communicate? Period. Point blank. Can you communicate? Can you do
¿Me
what you want to do?
entiendes o no? ¿Me
That's
entiendes?
it.
Podemos hablar ya.
Exacto, exacto. It's just like, can you do what you need to do and want to do in the language? And if you
Mm-hmm.
can, then
Then you got
congratulations.
it. Because even recently, I had a job at the Mexican consulate that we have here in Arkansas,
Mhm,
and that was my first time. Because even in English, government vernacular is way up
mhm,
there, and
right, right.
why did they say this word? So I'm, doing my job, and I'm like, I'm in the dictionary more than ever. Like I feel like a
Mhm,
beginner. What can't be said stuff like that? I can't say
mhm,
that. So, yes, I knew Spanish, but in a different context, at a higher, not level, but
mhm,
I guess higher level,
mhm,
like academia or however you want to word it. I
mhm.
still had to continue to learn. So, yeah, that's a really
Yeah,
good point you made.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
But
All right.
I love your approach to that, especially if you're working with young ones and kids and things like that. I love that you have that, like, I'm gonna say it and do it anyway. You can't
Yeah.
tell me I don't talk. I love that.
Just yeah, thank you. And I tell them, wing it, baby. And this is me, especially in the beginning, because I don't want to run even a grown person away with being too anal. Like
Mhm,
once we're a couple months in, I'll be a little more
mhm.
anal. But if you say a little word wrong, I'm gonna let you say it. Okay, keep going.
Yeah,
I'm just happy that you're talking, that you're shaping your mouth. I just
that's
want you to really get that confidence
right.
up,
That's
and then we
right.
can go to the rest.
We can do the rest later. That's right.
hmm Okay,
Talk to me no
so
more.
is there anything that's still difficult for you about Spanish today?
Um, what's still difficult for me? I think sometimes, um, Yes. So I tell people frequently, like when you're learning a language, you based on your interest. So there are things that like I'm not animals. Like if you start asking me plants and animals and things like that, I don't have a dog. I mean, I know how to say dog. I don't mean like, I mean like obscure or animals that are not common that we're talking about on a regular basis, right? For things that don't come up in conversation for me, I have to remember them, right? So, and also like in technical vocabulary and things that are not a part of my professional or social vocabulary, they don't just roll off the tongue. Like I have a student in my current Spanish coaching program. She does rock climbing. And so I was assisting her with vocabulary for rock climbing. Child, I don't climb rocks in English. I don't know what a carabiner is. I learned that because I talked to you know what I mean? Like, so I didn't know what do you know what a carabiner is?
No, ma'am. Sound like Caribbean.
Yep. So, you know, if you put on a harness, and the thing that you clip in to make sure basically you don't fall, that little clip where you can like open it up. And they even have keychains that in the same clip where you can put.
Oh, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
That's a carabiner.
Never knew the word for that.
If a few days ago I was talking to them, I'm like, I was 10 years old when I learned that, right? And so in Spanish it's mosquetón, right? Mosquetón. So un mosquetón.
Okay.
And so I learned about that because I'm constantly learning new vocabulary and conversation depending on the context. But if I were to say vocabulary that I'm kind of like, with, it would probably be like agricultural, environmental and like animal related things. I always have to look that stuff up and double check it because it's not a part of my normal day-to-day vocabulary.
Very, very honest. Let me ask you this too, since you mentioned wording and vocabulary, and especially since you have a business based on this. What do you like or want people to know when it comes to the difference in dialects and the different vocab in different countries? That's another level sometimes. So what have you experienced personally with that, or just in your business? How does that come up, or how's that mentioned?
There's so many different ways I can answer that. So, I'll answer the second question first. Have I experienced that personally? When I went to spend 2 weeks in the Dominican Republic, it was probably about a good 3 years after I had really learned Spanish after my study abroad, and I was very comfortable. I was working using the language professionally every single day. And so a friend wanted me to go with their family and hang out with them in the DR. Now, this friend, I would talk to them in Spanish on the job. We would talk, we would hang out, all that stuff, right? Child, when I got off that plane, honey, and I landed, and the first person said something to me, I was like, and I was like, I'm sitting here like, I know I speak Spanish. Like I speak Spanish every single day at work, right? I've talked to people from all across and I've talked to other Dominicans at home. Like, why can't I understand anything that anybody would say? And I mean, I'm being like facetious. I could understand like some stuff. It wasn't like complete Charlie Brown, wah, wah, wah. But I was losing, like if I were to say, if someone were talking to me, when I would normally understand 90, 95%, 100% of what someone was saying, I felt like I was understanding like 50 or 60%. When you get, in linguistically speaking, when you get to less than 80% comprehension, you might as well understand nothing because the pieces you're missing don't help you have context to know what the rest is saying. I don't know how these words fit together. So I just found myself feeling kind of lost. Right? And the reason why is because, like, if you talk to a person who is learning English and you say, I'm fitting to go over here, right? They don't know what fitting means, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
You said, I'm fixing to go over here. They don't understand why you're fixing to go anywhere. You know what I mean?
Right, because the word, the definition of fixing is to repair something, to work on something.
Right. What are you fixing? You know what I mean? Yeah. So what I found is that a lot of Caribbean Spanish, the same way like AAVE developed and that language was produced over time. That happens in Latin America and other countries also. The standard language is developed and changed, and another language is created. And what I found is there were certain things that people said that, frankly speaking, some of it was Spanish and some of it wasn't, right? Not standard Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that in a pejorative way. I'm saying that in like a real, like, I like it better, you know, because the people that I could talk to, I'm just like, some of it's Spanish, but some of it is a non-standard version of Spanish.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that difference. That's not something that I learned on my study abroad. That's not something I learned from reading a textbook. That's what I learned from being in community and talking to people and noticing how people, what letters you cut off, what letters in the middle of the sentence people are probably not going to say, and learning how to hear the language differently, and know the difference between that. And now, I often get people to be like, "Oh, you sound Caribbean, like you sound like Caribbean Spanish," because I'm just like, that's because I didn't pronounce the S on the end, and you're just trying to tell me that I didn't pronounce it right. Right? Like, you know what I'd be like, I can tell when they're like, you know, it's a vibe or whatever. So I now am in love with like Caribbean style Spanish, like. I love that accent. It feels so real. It feels raw, and it makes sense to me because I can tie it to AAVE. So it's like more of a direct tie to my native language, if that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Because it's like we all, and due to the diaspora, we all are from somewhere else anyway. We all learned a colonizer's language. So the fact that we end up making our own out of the colonizer's language, it gives us a sense of community or connection.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
So that's beautiful. Yeah. So I think that was the challenge for me.
And this is your second time kind of mentioning how something you learned in or through Spanish connected you to your origins. And so you mentioned the more you learn Spanish, the more you got to know English pretty much, or see those little things. And even in this case, the more you learned a sub version of Spanish, the more it connected you with your sub version of English. And that's what I'm glad you brought that up, because I want people to realize that oftentimes, I don't know what non-melanated folks go through when they learn another language, but for me, I have definitely been able to feel closer to my roots through learning something that's foreign. I know that sounds strange, but even learning of Afro-Latinos has opened my eyes and my mind, and I'm just like, whoa, you know, it's like, to me, they're my cousins. I call them primos. They're my cousins.
That's right.
So
great granddad just got dropped off later.
Yeah, that's my cousin. Primo! You know?
Primo.
But and in other ways too, I think it can be for anybody though. Learning something that's foreign really just goes back to all of our humanity and what makes us human, and all of our origins and all of our histories. Because every group, you know, has been oppressed somehow or been through different things. Historically, and some more than others, but I think it just helped. It's just so funny, I guess, how something that's foreign connects us all. Does that make sense?
No, it makes total sense. I mean, we have like these T-shirts that say "BU" in more than one language. That we say like "BU en más de un idioma" and things like that. And so, like, I always focused on trying to be myself in this other language, because I feel like the language can be foreign, but there are cultural connections. There are things like, if I hear some drums, I feel like you just called me. You know what I mean? Like, and like whether they're samba drums or they're the drums of Latin jazz or salsa, whether it's a soca song or it's Jamaican dancehall or it's hip hop. When I hear the drums, like the people who come, they look like me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it was just like, I think going back to the intentional and purposeful comment, like now, as opposed to just kind of, you know, accidentally popping up on that, oh, this brought me, I go looking for myself in the other language. So like, if I lived in this country, if I were hanging out here, who would I be? Who would I talk to? Where would I go? So I go into the language learning process looking to explore myself.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, let's see. We only have like 15 minutes left, so I'm gonna skip a lot of these and let's go into your business. Jamii Linguists.
Jamila. Yeah.
Jamii Linguists. Just kind of tell us the origin story. When did you say, okay, yes, I know Spanish and I'm bilingual, trilingual, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm multilingual and I know. So now I'm gonna make it a business.
Mm-hmm.
Where was that shift?
I found it, Jamii Linguists, and I believe, not I believe, I know, but September of 2015 was, and but I didn't necessarily go public and have like, but I did a trip to Colombia. I registered in Colombia. We have we're also a registered business there, and started doing the work. But the reason why but before that happened, there was like a long build up to that. You know how it is. Before you do something, you wanted to do it for a long time. Like there's a lot of people, even with language learning, that been wanting to learn a language for years. They just haven't done it yet. I think the thing that made me want to do it many, many, many moons ago was because every single opportunity, I just saw how much language transformed my life, right? It really did transform my life. I just did, like, in our little group, in the language and diaspora group, I just did a whole thing about the ROI of language learning. And the ROI that I've gotten from language learning eclipses any other return on the investment that I got from like my law degree and from all of those other things. I'm still waiting for some of the coins on that to come through, right? Right? You know what I mean? But even when I got opportunities, if someone needed to hire an attorney, they wanted to hire me because I was a bilingual attorney, not just because I was. If someone needed a teacher, they were happy that they could find me as a bilingual teacher because I needed to communicate with parents. If I was doing a community organizing project, or we were doing mobilizing around social justice issues or union organizing or all of those different things, I had to talk to people who didn't speak English, right? And then when I look at how much representation of Black voices, of my voice as a Black person from the United States, was present in those rooms, I'm like, it wasn't as present as I, would have liked. You know what I mean? As my voice was always being interpreted through someone who didn't really know my community. And I'm like, there has to be a way. And I think you popped off for me there.
Can you hear me and see me? Hello? Uh-oh.
Can you see me?
I can hear you. Your screen's kind of frozen.
I see you now. Your video's back, but
having some technical difficulties. I'm just gonna wait it out. Hello, hello, hello. Well, dear viewer, if you're still watching, thank you. Let's go ahead and wait it out a little bit to see if she returns. Hopefully her connection is working. So just stay tuned. Wait about a minute or two. Okay, gracias. Oh, yay.
There we go. All right. Technology. That's just, it is what it is.
It's okay. It's all right. And we're more dependent on it now. And what they say is a risk of less bandwidth or something, because everybody's on it. So
right. I can feel that. I get that. But I mean, long story short, see, that was just the technology universe telling me to wrap it up. It was like, okay, get to the point. Why did you start this little business?
It's not a little business.
No. But thank you for that. But no, I just kept seeing the consistency and the value of language and how necessary it was. And then because I had traveled and I met other Black folks, I just kept seeing how many Black people don't understand what global Blackness really looks like, and how it impacts them and how we're connected. And the reason why they don't understand it is because we're not just separated by distance, we're separated by language. There are conversations we're not having with each other. There are opportunities that we're not working with and collaborating on with each other because we can't talk to each other at certain times. And that made me feel like, and I also was a kind of person where I didn't like being stuck doing one thing. You know what I mean? I feel like everyone tells me I have adult ADHD. So I'm like, I didn't want to just do law, or I didn't want to just teach, or I didn't want to just, like, I wanted to do all the things. Right. And language was this way for me to do all the things and still be in community with my people.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. So what was step one? I mean, okay, you had that epiphany, you had that realization. Because you mentioned November, what year? I'm sorry.
September 2015. And then,
Okay.
yep.
And so what was even step one? And let me ask you this as well. How did you know you just didn't want to teach language? How did you know you wanted to pause. What is your business even about? Because it's not just teaching language. Go ahead and explain what your business is.
Actually, it started more around providing interpreting and translation services for mission-driven organizations, right? So they need to do community events. Not everyone at that event is going to speak English. They need to send emails and invite. They need to share critical information about voting, about social services, about community organizing. People need access to information, and they need ability to connect and coordinate. So it started with me saying, okay, these same types of organizations and campaigns and political campaigns and issue-based advocacy campaigns that I've been working on, they always needed language support, right? And then, you holler at the bilingual employee and you treat them like they're an professional interpreter or translator when they're not. And as a result, a community gets substandard services and they're not really brought into the fold of your organization or your work. So I said, I'm going to provide interpreting and translation services for mission-driven organizations. That's what I'm going to do. What I learned is in doing that, and I still do that, and that's what we do, Jamii does, but it wasn't enough because sometimes people just need to learn a language. Like if you need to translate your quarterly report and you need your website done, yes, you need a professional linguist. If you need a simultaneous interpreter for a community meeting, yes, you need a professional linguist. But if you just need someone to say, hi, this is what our programs and services are, and you're out in the community, or you need to direct someone who enters your building to the bathroom, you don't need to always have a professional linguist for that. You need to learn a language. And I realized that there was that missing piece. And that's when I founded the Language and Diaspora program in 2017.
All right.
Yeah. And so that brought it together for me, that combination.
What was your biggest issue or issues? Because, starting your own business brings several things up. What were some of your biggest battles?
I missed it a little bit after biggest issue.
What were some of your biggest issues in starting this business? Uh-oh. Nope. Okay. I'm going to wait for it to get it together. Thank you, viewers, for being patient. Hey, you back? Okay. All right. What were some of your biggest issues? Because I imagine just like any business owner, a new business owner, when you first get the epiphany, you have a drive and you're full steam ahead. So what were some of those battles in building this business?
Capital and staff, money and staff. I think I had the vision. I had worked with, I was familiar. I did business incorporation and things legally. So I had worked with people founding nonprofits and helping people start nonprofits and navigating, incorporating and all that stuff. So I really, the legal side of the things were easy and the managing that kind of stuff. But I think just, I'm one person. So starting out as a solopreneur, 100% and then having to, I don't speak all the languages, right? So needing to find the team of interpreters, find the team of translators, and then also make sure that they understand the culture that I'm trying to create in the organization, that we are progressive, we are pro LGBT, we are pro Black, we are, pro justice for all people, right? But we have a focus on all Black people. You know what I mean? And because we.
Okay, wait for it to come back around. And we're almost done with the interview, viewers, in case you're like, oh, I'm tired of the disconnect. Don't worry. Stop in. All right, we're about 6 minutes away from ending. So thanks.
Okay, there we go.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but so I don't know what the last part is that you heard.
Letting the staff know the culture, pro LGBT, pro justice, pro black.
Yeah. Right. So like, we are, we're pro justice for all people, but we have a focus on what that means for all Black people everywhere. Right. And so not just needing staff, but needing staff that match that culture. They can, you know what I mean? And they needing, a team and those kinds of things. I think, and then, being able to walk in my values. And so if you have people working for you, you need to pay them appropriately. You need to
Yeah.
have those things together. So I think it was just getting, and that's still a journey. We're still growing.
Yeah.
Honestly, 2020 has been an incredible year for the Language and Diaspora program. And to some extent, we've started to switch the business model a bit, because initially we were very heavy on focusing a lot of our efforts on the interpreting and translation. And now we are taking the language learning side very, very seriously.
All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. I don't know. I'm looking at this because I don't have any.
That it's breaking up.
It's fine. Can you hear me? Nope. That's fine. Just wait around.
I think it's me. I think it's me. I'm sorry.
No, dear, you're fine. You cannot control it. Technology has a mind of its own. And I mean that in every good and bad way. But we're almost done. I'm ask two more questions.
We've started to take the language learning side of what we do much more serious and focusing up, because the interpreting and translation side is solid. Like, we had a lot of years to get that together. That's why, as you know, I was telling you about the Translate the Movement campaign, where we're raising funds to provide interpreting and translation for Black-led organizations doing racial justice work. So since that's solid, we've started to kind of expand and flip the business model a little bit to have a much larger focus on language and diaspora, a much larger focus on language learning, and having Black-centered spaces for language learners. And so to a certain extent, some of that is putting me in that space again. We're like, getting different language coaches and different languages and kind of building the team and the culture again in that. And it's been fun. It's fun.
That is beautiful. I can't say it enough. So before we wrap up, let's go ahead and have you talk about the Translate the Movement program and anything else. Overall, how to follow you, how to learn more about your business, how to get involved, and then, of course, the programs you're doing. Go ahead with that.
Well, there's two big ways to get involved and be a community. We do have a free Facebook group, the Language and Diaspora Facebook group, Facebook page. So Jamii Linguists on Twitter, on IG, on Facebook. You can always be a community with us there. I'm most active in the Facebook community and on Instagram. Both are Jamii Linguists. As far as the Translate the Movement campaign, that's on the Give Butter. Give like butter, like mantequilla. GiveButter.com/Translate the Movement. I would greatly appreciate donations to support, because we are providing. It feels so good to be able to have someone say, we really need this, and to be able to say, I can help your organization do that for free. Smaller nonprofits and local organizing campaigns, they're doing important work that's in a lot of situations saving lives, but they can't necessarily do that in all the languages because they don't have the budget for it. And it's not interpreting and translation is not cheap sometimes.
Correct.
And so being able to say, you know what, I got you. We can and we have capable, skilled, professional linguists that can help you. This movement, what we're seeing, the momentum that we're seeing in this movement, it's international and it's not going to occur in one language. So I would say that. And other than that, join us in the Facebook group. We have a challenge going on right now, actually.
Okay, I'm about to join after this, and I'll donate as well. You say Give Butter?
GiveButter.com/Translate the Movement.
Such an interesting name. I know you to make up the company name, but that's butter. But okay, anyway.
Give Butter, yeah, because that's a whole other platform. But I thought the same thing. The Give Butter, I liked it also.
Okay, so we're gonna end up with your introduction in English. So for the
Okay.
viewers who are still watching, thank you for your patience and riding with us through ups and downs. Technology is on and off, but thank you. So this is your time, viewer, to see from the beginning, what did you comprehend? Here we go.
Okay.
So we already know your name. So
Okay.
what are your pastimes? I think you just mostly mentioned one, your pastime.
Dancing. Dancing is what I mentioned. Definitely
Mhm.
dancing, soca, that kind of thing.
And excuse me, I have to interrupt this part. I just discovered soca a month ago, and I'm still a little confused. Is it mostly just Caribbean Latino twerking? And I hope that don't sound insulting. That's what I see. I'm like, that's just twerk, twerk, twerk. That's all. But I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm not trying to minimize it. I'm sorry.
That is a whole. No, I'm laughing. So it is Caribbean. Like it is a Caribbean cultural music. No, I mean the only way I know how to say it is it's life. Soca is life. It's a festival. It's an energy. But the music, the dance, like there's the music, there's how you dance to it. There's the carnival culture and what that emanates from. But that's a whole nother conversation, sis. But it's
Okay.
not. But it's definitely there. There's definitely still a lot of hip rhythms and all of that stuff. So soca is different than you got to know how to whine a little, but the whine is in soca and the whine and like dance hall is different. So they
Yeah.
actually have some competitions like that, like whining versus twerking. You can see that. Yes, they're quite interesting to watch.
I need to look at some more videos and learn a little bit because I'm just like, all I see is twerking. Not like I said, it's still its own thing. It's a culture. It's a big deal. But I'm like, I'm just trying to connect it to what I already know. Like, is that what it is?
But there's so much to it. There's so much more to it. It's a whole. You have to.
You're
It's
saying
one of
it's a
those things
culture,
where you
not just
have
a
to know the
dance.
culture. Oh, I can't
It's
hear.
a
I think
culture,
you're breaking up. Yeah, you have to know the culture. Like there's even, songs that are just like, we all have those songs that tell you what to do. And you
yeah,
got you follow the lyrics of the song and it's telling you what to do.
yeah,
When to duck, when to go to this side, when to go to that
yeah,
side, that kind
yeah.
of thing.
Like
So
the
it's
cha cha
a vibe.
side.
Yeah. It's a vibe.
Mhm.
It's a
Yeah,
vibe. But it's not all twerk like, but it'd be fine with
I
me
got
if it
you.
was, but it's not.
Where are you from?
I am from the United States,
And then what particular state?
Connecticut.
But that's when I told her that I'd never talked to anybody from Connecticut. So,
And I
and I
said
think
that I was trying to remember if I knew someone from Arkansas.
no,
And
we're here.
yep.
We're we're here. Arkansas, stand up. Okay. Your family. Tell us about your family.
I have a mix of Trinidadian family, Afro-Colombian family, and Black folks from the United States of
Mm-hmm.
America. And I think in the beginning I said that my blood and my family, like my mom, my dad, are both from the United States, but then I have Afro-Colombian family from my daughter's father, that side of the
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Your job or jobs?
My job or jobs, Jamii, interpreting, translation, language coaching, and yep, everything, all things language.
So you don't practice law anymore?
I'm not currently, so I am registered. I'm still licensed. I do support like with pro bono things like that, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
currently accept paid clients for law.
Gotcha. Okay. And two more. What do you want to do or be in the future if it's different from what you're doing now?
I said in the beginning that I wanted to expand the languages that we cover in language and diaspora, to have more English language learning programs and expand to more languages to help more language learners.
Okay. And finally, would you tell me something on this guy? I think I've heard of his name at least, but
Joey Arroyo.
favorite song. And she had a song, not singer, but favorite Spanish
Yeah,
song.
I didn't have to. So that's not my favorite singer. I said it was too hard to pick a favorite singer, but one of my favorite songs, and if not maybe the favorite salsa song, is "The Rebellion," La Rebelión by Joey Arroyo.
And I'm gonna have to go
You
YouTube that after this conversation.
do that. It's fire.
That's one thing what's one thing I love about these interviews. Like my mind just continues to open up and grow, and because I'm real limited in my music. If it's not Celia Cruz, Hector Lavoe, Selena Quintanilla,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. But through these interviews, like for example, you mentioned Afro-Colombians. I did an interview last week or 2 weeks ago with a man named Kadeem. Through him, I learned about Choquitown.
Oh yeah,
Never would have known about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, never would have known about them. So you all
Yep.
are teaching me. I appreciate it.
Yep,
All
choking
right, well, thank you so much. I can't say thank you enough for your time. Thank you to the viewers, and that is it. So,
Thank you for
buenas
having me. Thank
noches.
you for
Yes,
everything you do.
yes, ma'am. Bless you. Adios.